Welcome to the Boschcast with James Boschman and Denise Young, where we talk about Manitoba real estate and everything else that's on our minds. What's going on, everybody? It's James here with the Boschman team and the Boschcast. And today I have a special guest on. Denise couldn't be with us. She's having like a dental emergency or something. So I figured it'd be cool to have on my boy, Steven. So so I thought it'd be kind of cool to start having more young entrepreneurs on the pod, just to kind of like talk to them and see how things tick with their business. And, you know, iron sharpens iron. So it's kind of interesting, and get some insider baseball on, you know, how they got to where they are and like how they run their business, you know, even if it's not totally like real estate related. I've always had a lot of respect for, you know, young entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are hustlers by nature and run businesses. You know, it's cool to see people that are self-motivated to, you know, build bigger businesses and bigger lives as well. So I wanted to have Steven on. I know he started many businesses, and you know, he currently runs a tree business that kind of segues in nicely to real estate. And I believe you were a team leader at a brokerage at one point too. Hey, Steve?
I was, yes. That's I guess our original meeting was under that hat, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me in such, big light. I know there's lots of people trying out there in the entrepreneur side, and I'd say that's still kind of. I think that you always are ultimately trying. You're trying different things, different techniques
Absolutely.
to grow your businesses, and I'm excited to chat about that more today.
Cool.
Yeah.
So who are you and what is your story?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I like to chat, but to keep it as focused as we can. But from Winnipeg here, Manitoba. The family's been here for a while. Grew up in the city. Played some hockey. Got a little exposure across our country playing that. Did some traveling there to note, and then university came upon me, so pursued some further education there while running some of my own companies at that time. The first one that I truly did, and I think it was probably a thing of my generation or our generation for age-wise to cut grass, and that's kind of a funny story about how that really got out of hand. But I started when I was 12, and I just didn't say no to much, not really knowing there was no negative outcome at that point. I think you're kind of naive to realize, even to think of anything that could go wrong. You just say yes and then find a way.
Yeah.
So I was doing that as having some other jobs through university, where I took a agriculture business degree. Met a lot of great people there. Learned a lot about ag because I was not necessarily the black sheep of the herd, but definitely a little bit of an outlier at that time for taking an ag degree. Met so many great people there. It led me to we'll call it the first step of or stage of my career professionally, where I ended up working in I guess we'll call it like corporate ag side of things for about a decade. I went through a couple like merger acquisition things with companies. It was just kind of the timing of my career. So I swapped hats a couple times there, and then ended up actually coming over to real estate along with a couple other jobs, while also kind of finding myself in chasing down the pursuit of exploring working for myself truly at the end of the day, and trying to make that transition as smooth as possible. Maybe we could chat more about that. I think one of the only ways is to really jump out. You should probably have a plan. I talk about this a little bit on a little bit of a posting that I do, because I sometimes do get questions from folks about when do you know, and I think really analyzing things to some degree, but being really confident in what you're doing, and then putting time frames and stuff on it too for success, but hopefully having them be more of a long play. So
I think the biggest thing that people struggle with as like entrepreneurs, is like really jumping into it, like really sinking into what they are, and taking that leap. I know even like for me, real estate, being a realtor, I don't know if the public really recognizes that realtors are actually self-employed, because usually realtors will fall under an umbrella of the brokerage that they're with, right? So sometimes I think people think that maybe we're like employed by that brokerage, but we're actually just paying them fees for their brand or their marketing or their training or whatever it is. And so we're solely like self-employed, commission based income. And even for me, like, I had always worked like a normal-ish job before real estate. And finally, like, making that decision to like jump in with 2 feet. And even now, there's like, with real estate, there's a lot of like, for one, when I got into real estate, couldn't have another job on the side. Like, had to go in 2 feet, like full time only. Nowadays, you can be self-employed and you can have a side hustle job if you want, or you could work at Starbucks and sell real estate. But even then, you have to like commit to one thing, or else you're going to be spread too thin and you're not really going to make it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really hard decision to make, when you have consistent income or semi-consistent income, and then like taking that leap and not knowing, like, you wake up every day and you're essentially unemployed. You're like, okay, now I have to go become employed, and
Yep.
it can be tough. So you started out, in working for an ag company and stuff like that. And then, you were kind of like building this business, so to speak, on the side, right? With the hope and goal that one day that would be like everything, like you would just transition into that. And so talk about, like, I guess, some of the companies that you've been a part of, that you've started, and what you're working on now.
For sure. Yeah, no, and I think maybe even something to like throw in the mixer too. Like, I've tried a couple things that didn't work out for different reasons. Like, they
Yeah.
weren't even really pursued that heavy because they just flopped, like earlier on. And like, we, just to note a couple, but it was while working in ag, we me and a good friend of mine started this company. It was a metal works company. We saw an opportunity to make like house signs, actually leading back to the real estate world there. And we were trying hard because he had the experience to draw those up on what are called, or known as, CAD files. Very similar to now. It's come a long way. Like, a lot of stuff is they changed in tech, so even for or on the technology and softwares themselves. But we create those, and we ran into some issues there. It was kind of more of a garage hobby thing. But if we could have scaled that, and I mean, having those experiences hands on, it's like one of those memes you see online about business, and it's like, learn from someone telling you, go to school, the little book, more books, and then from experience, it's like the biggest one.
Yeah.
I'd say experiencing some of that stuff, although fairly like unrelated to many things, will still have an impact on how I make decisions today about businesses and risk. And it is kind of funny though, and I think this is maybe why, or how a lot of us are wired in the entrepreneurial space, is that you do still have those bills coming at the end of the month and stuff, but you kind of see every day as an opportunity to go like times 10, whatever without quoting Grant Cardone too heavy, but like there's an opportunity there to like, like just do really great, like on the other side. Because if you hit that right phone call, it's kind of, we'll call it a game over, or, it's good. It's very, very positive news for you. And I think a lot of that optimism is what keeps a lot of us going, is like, hey, like, didn't make anything today. Okay, there's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But also, reflect on decisions made, because it's better to make them on that small scale. And we are, just chatting before about this too, and very relatable to maybe even like segue without you directly asking the question. But like, in terms of like the scale, like, I mean, just starting off with that small thing, if it is possible, where you're not fully committed. Sometimes it's like an issue with wholesalers. If you're making a product though, you'll have to commit to so much to make something possible. So picking up that phone and being creative with alternative ways to source that product or whatever that may be. Like I don't have the direct example, but sometimes you have to commit to like a 1,000 items, and you really just want to see if you can sell 10.
Yeah.
Because you know 10 people that could use this thing. Try to find them a little bit better deal, have a win-win situation, get some responses, replies, feel that. How does that feel from that stage versus going for the whole 1,000 or committing to like 10,000 because you're really excited about that thing. Other people might not like it or even be as enthusiastic, but it might be a great idea. But you got to know like your customer, and ultimately like drawing out that plan is, I think, an important piece of that.
So you did like a metalworks thing, and then now you're selling trees. So this is what is really interesting to me is normally when you want to buy a tree, you go to a greenhouse, and you walk and you look at the trees, or you call like a nursery, like a tree nursery. Let's say you have an acreage and you need like shelter belt trees or whatever, just even seedlings or whatever. You phone, but you've kind of taken, what I find interesting is you've taken that like tree nursery idea, selling trees in bulk, so to speak, and not bulk. Like, if somebody wanted a couple trees planted, I'm sure he'd go plant these trees. But you've taken that like super kind of like outdated business model where, you take out an article in the newspaper for your tree nursery, and you've taken it onto social media, and you're kind of using social media as like a tool to sell trees. So kind of, I guess, talk about your company, Tree Daddii, which is like the dopest name ever. Who came up with this name? And and what is it all like? What is it all about? What is Tree Daddii?
For sure. And I think maybe even like referencing and segueing that point to have share enough slow to just explain how we got started on this thing. One of the opportunities, obviously, like connecting this was like, and you're right though, a little bit of a dated system. I did see an opportunity there to start, but ultimately it was more after doing some of the other companies, I think, and we both kind of agreed to more of the focus to be on Tree Daddii and on what we've done there. But it's like looking at what we have here in the prairies based out of Winnipeg was, just having this conversation with, and I'll lightly mention, but we won't get too in the weeds on this, but do have a partner on that company right now that we work together. We start the trees off on their farm, and then we grow them for a couple of years. So we started during COVID, and then we pulled them up bare root, bundle them up, send them across. We have 2 pickup spots. And I'd say like starting off slow, like we were literally selling these things off Facebook Marketplace originally. And it turned out that we had a pretty high demand for that product. We also do supply a couple nurseries with trees just because of our price point. We also don't have the retail rent as overhead. We are basically meeting people in parking lots for pickup. We offer delivery a little bit, but if we want to look at like the behind the scenes, and people are like, well, that's too, some people will complain like, that's too good of a deal. What are you doing? This is something wrong here. And I was like, well, we just don't have the overhead. We're looking to just break into the market, make
it's like direct to consumer kind of thing, like selling trees direct from the farm to the consumer.
Pretty close to, yeah, exactly, yeah. And so we're not doing that. And I mean, in this business too, we kind of expect we'll be, there's always ways to improve though too. I mean, we were young in this business, learning lots about that as we were doing it. It was kind of an interesting thing because we were doing this over, like I said, Facebook Marketplace, maybe some on Kijiji, but most seemed to come through Facebook when we were selling them. And so we were taking, deposits on the trees just to build our confidence on people showing up for the pickup day. And again, we're seriously talking like really tight margins, and people don't really understand that. They think that everything's got this like crazy margin, and it's truly not like that. I would be, obviously you don't really want to show them like your books. It's just a little bit more personal, but realistically there's not a ton of room there. And we're just trying to get these, we sold them for $10 a tree the first year. Those trees will retail for like $25-$30.
Oh wow.
Just to give perspective on that. And Just trying to get the name out there. Ideally, like in situations like where there's shelter belts and stuff, regardless of size of tree and where you're getting it from, you're probably going to lose 10 to 15% of trees. That's just what we go off of from bigger companies that we've contacted and talked to when we were kind of developing more research around what we were doing as it came closer to sell, just to set expectations of people to be real about them. If you have them in a residential setting where there's a fenced yard, such as where I'm in Winnipeg here, it's not going to be everyone, but all of mine are still thriving. I've planted about half a dozen in the yard here, and they come, they're about 2-foot trees, great for starting off a shelter belt, like we were mentioning there, or just in a yard. And for that price point, you can't really be too upset. Like the next step up is really like you got to take the root ball and they get a little bit bigger than this. And then that adds more price on delivery, planting them. So you're kind of better to take that risk when we look at the economics behind it and what we're, or what we think is, a strong option for getting those trees. So we started off, just through Facebook and then taking deposits and such. And by the time that season was done, which was last spring, we had sold, I was referencing 7,000 recently. I think my partner recently told me it's more like 6,500, but it was literal chaos. We had spreadsheets. I called my mom at one point. I'm like, hey, I messed up. Like I took on too, like there's a lot of stuff happening here. Yeah. And we were kind of mentioning before about, it all worked out. Everyone got their trees. Everything's fine. I just was working a job while doing that too. Yeah. So at one point I had to call in and be like, hey, like I need someone else to look at this and like help organize when people are coming to pick up. We do pick up for about a week. We have set days and set hours where people can come meet us, and we'll bring the trees there. Because once we box them, it's in a wax box. They're good for about 10 days after that. You could stretch it as long as the roots are moist and stuff. A little bit more details. But once we got into that, I realized we got to organize this a little bit better. And go like, why don't we advertise on social media and then also make a website so we have a easier way to get a hold of people. It's not just emails coming in and phone calls and it's that in its own is kind of like the dated thing that we're chatting about. And I think one thing that's kind of forgotten when ordering online, if it is a small business that has an online store, is that person gets to see a lot of analytics behind the scenes. Like what we were chatting about, like I can literally log into my store right now and see that there is and there was 2 people online when we were chatting here. I don't know who they are. Like that's too creepy. But like I can see that there's 2 people online, and if someone were to place an order, I get an email. It's kind of one of those funny things that you see on dinner once in a while, like someone high fives in the small business. That's real though. Like that's a real feeling that you do kind of get without being too, soft about that. But when you're starting this stuff off, you see this order come in, you're like, great, awesome, sweet. Payments en route. That in this case is through Square, but I do have another store through Shopify, and you're very interactive with your customers. It's just a different way of processing payment that some people are less comfortable with, basically. But like people don't know enough that you are actively like on there. It's not a lot different than going to a store. You're just seeing it differently. You get the name and all the contact stuff afterwards anyways. And if something goes wrong, there's always a way to, refund and do different things. If there's an accidental purchase of, well, maybe they do really want, 1,000 trees or whatever, but if they meant 100, you can go and change that form. It's not that big of a deal. It's just the communication piece around what's going on there.
Yeah, I know, like, number one, I love trees. So I think this is a really good idea. And like taking in like an outdated, driving to the tree nursery on Sunday afternoon after church, and going to look at trees. Like I can go onto your website and I could say, okay, I want to order this size of tree. If I wanted to order a bunch of trees and have you either deliver and install, do you have that type of service as well?
We do. Yes, we're and just looking at a note here too, just remember anyone who's listening that we're at this stage today, March 27th, 23 here. We're just getting started. So right now we have 2 main varieties. I'll just kind of walk through that system and how we're adding other services to the thing here. So we started off with green, or Black Hill spruce is the technical name, but green spruce trees. Colorado blue. They're both 2.5, 3-year-old trees. That's how they're ranked. Coming off the farm there. That's the stage that we're selling them at. From there, we're going to add in other products such as these really cool things like grow bags, so you can easily move them around. So if you did want to plant a bunch of these trees in your own little styled nursery before you go and put them out as that tree line, because it'll increase their likelihood of survival, you can do that where it's a little bit easier to transport them.
Okay.
And then we are adding in, the service of install. Brief window right after we harvest them. If someone is booked ahead with us, we can come out to your property and dig them in. We throw in some fresh dirt and a little fertilizer product that we have partners with. We'll have some options still to be set online for that, but some other nutrient options for folks. Because initially, when you do get these trees, and just like any tree, it may not always come in the label, but you should treat that thing as if it's a flower in the basket, just to get those roots stimulated and going. Be no different than you being dehydrated after a long workout or something traumatic, so to say, that happening. You got to get them settled, get those roots growing. This is the ag part of my brain coming out. That part of my degree with the expertise, but it certainly is, relatable helpful on a basic level to most people. And some people just don't have those experiences. So if they do want us to come out and plant them, we're really reasonable. We get them to mark it off for how deep we're planting these things. They're not, monster trees. We won't have to get anything white or measured for wired out, I guess, or anything like that. They're not going that deep in theory. So we just ask people to be cognizant if there's something on the property we don't want to go into, or the trees don't want to grow through, that they probably should, plant them somewhere else. But we have some great options there, and hopefully we can add more services in the future, needs of our customers. There's kind of two steps of sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the other thing I was going to say, I noticed that during the wintertime, you guys were selling firewood bundles as well. Now, is that through Tree Daddii?
Yes, that is, you're reading my mind as I was reading your face here. So we,
So I noticed that you sell firewood bundles, so you'll deliver firewood, and then also Swedish logs, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's kind of a segue, a funny, thing to note here. There's really two times you usually have to deal with a tree, and one of them is planting it, and the other part of it is taking it down. Trees are the ultimate renewable resource.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we do lose trees to, clearing of trees for different developments or forest fires, unfortunately, but they do come back. You have the opportunity to plant them again and grow them again. It's a funny resource to chat about in this day and age, but there's it's not like you can grow cement yet. Maybe one day with some kind of fungus or something will be there to grow a product as such. But it's really neat to see that. And so there's two parts of the journey there with the tree that are I identify as the two main reasons to even discuss the product alone. But we that's another, I guess we'll call extension of the business with a couple vendors that work with me. I'm kind of right now more of just facilitating that business through Tree Daddii, but we did have a demand for people asking about that. And then as an extension of services that we're looking at too, in terms of arborist style extension there, not full bore go on that one yet, but probably by the time this is out and people listening to it, we might be able to click and book those appointments through us then. So bundles of firewood. Those are, nice to get out to people. It's a pretty easy product. Whether it's we have them bundled up in 1 cubic foot bundles for that, and you book through the website, add in your address for delivery or pickup. We have 2 pickup locations in the city as far as that goes, and then the neat product. And in that note too, it's one of those things like starting off a business, conversations you didn't think were going to happen. We did get reached out to a couple local retailers to carry both bundles, and the next product I'll talk about being the Swedish log. And it's pretty basic, but years ago they actually used these for survival during different wars in the wintertime to cook on. It's a fairly effective way. There's kind of 2 ways to make them. We've chosen to do ours with a solid log, and then we use a chainsaw to create them and cut them with 3 slits into the log itself, which allows us to then start the fire from the inside of that log. And then we have some little minor packaging that comes with it. There's a handle that we strap on top, and then some advertisement, which ultimately we hope that you actually just use to start the fire in both those cases, because it's just really good use of the full cycle of starting that off. But you can put a cast iron pan on top of that and cook a meal. There's some really fun things that you could do out camping. I think we're going to have a fairly good summer with that product because it's easy to move. It's not
Super
loose
easy.
wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as that goes.
And you don't
It's kind of
necessarily
fun
need a
too.
pit, right? As long as you have
Yeah,
like rocks or something that isn't gonna catch fire underneath once it burns down, like you can
yeah,
plunk that thing, light it up, and you've got like a little bonfire essentially all in one.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
kind
and
of
that's one of
cool.
the great things about it is it's like that also kind of creates, if it is wet out, your own dry surface actually. If
Yeah.
that log is kept dry on its own, and with the cuts in it, it does allow the air to flow through it, which should keep it dry.
Yeah.
Does it get a little wet? I don't know what the situation would be, but it's gonna be a fun one I think for camping this season, or that's what we're aiming for anyways. And you know what, it's one of those. We'll find out how big the demand is as we're going, but we've already
Yeah.
gained interest with some retailers to carry them because it's not that common of a product yet.
Yeah.
And I think we might have tapped into good timing situation with that one.
Hmm.
And it like you mentioned though too, it's kind of like an extension of the tree thing. So the more stuff we can touch into,
Yeah.
whether it's growing them or um, turn them into a heat energy source at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
I'm just thinking like another game changer. I think, there's a lot of people in the real estate industry, whether it's um, realtors, home builders, developers, um, that oftentimes we have a really hard time trying to figure out what a good client gift is for someone.
Yeah,
And I do a lot of work in the new home side of things. New developments. A lot of these new developments, there's not a single tree in sight. Like when
yep,
the developer comes in and they're putting streets and services and subdividing lots in the middle of a farmer's field, there's no trees, right? So I think that's a really great service, for a lot of realtors out there to, you know, like order a package and have it delivered to their client's property. And whether that's like you guys install it or the customers install it, super great client gift. And, I also work for builders who, you know, they'll build a custom house for people in, a treed subdivision or a treed development. Well, depending on how big those lots are, everybody wants when a builder is building a house on a treed lot, people who want to build there, they want as many of those trees kept as possible. Depending on the tree, however, if you got a lot where the house is going to be smack dab in the middle of the lot, well, you got to get in there with excavators and bobcats and all the machines that are necessary to dig that basement, build that house, all the backfilling that's associated. And in Manitoba, we've got a lot of poplars for trees, right? And so poplars are notorious for having super shallow root systems. And when you go in there and you start clearing, well, everything is coming down, And sometimes people buy these treed lots because they're envisioning, I'm going to be in my brand new house, I'm going to be on my deck, and I'm just going to have trees and birds singing. And then when they move in, there's like 2 trees left. They're like, what the hell, Well, it's like
yeah,
the builder can only do so much. You can only save what can be saved. And so that's where a service like what you guys provide, I know you're not selling poplars or whatever, but to come in and throw a bunch of spruce trees in there, because that's what people want. They want privacy. They want that tree to, they want to watch it grow. They want to be a part of it. So that would be a really great opportunity as well. I feel like even if a builder came in and said, I'm gonna knock probably more trees down on your lot than what you think. Here's a gift card, to Tree Daddii. Use it. When you take possession, call these guys. Use it. That's a great little touch that builders could add. So
I think it's no, absolutely. I think that'd be a great option. I love that you're planting a seed, no pun intended, with
yeah,
the folks listening here.
I'm trying to think about
For us.
all the utility for the business because it's such a cool idea,
Yeah,
and just the online
yeah,
ordering thing. It's so different than like I said, like I know you could probably go on to, Shelmerdine's greenhouse. I don't know if they have an online store, but the fact that you guys are, running this through social media and, gaining a following that way is so cool. So
yeah. You know what? It's like in places like that have so many products that they carry. There's many
yeah,
reasons to go there, just as it were. Not. I
right.
mean, in that case, it's kind of like a specialty store around, higher end goods as well as, I guess the
Yeah.
traditional greenhouse side of their business. But, we, if you're looking for trees, it's kind of the easier place to come to in many ways. And I mean,
Mhm.
we're starting to add to the number of varieties that we do carry. They take some time to grow. When
Yeah.
we order them, they're quite small, or we are starting them from seed, and
Yeah.
we like to expand that too. And there's been a general interest this season. I found more so in the fruit side of things. I think a lot of it has to do with the news. We're going to get in the weeds for a sec here around the
Yeah.
food
Yeah.
and pricing there, and folks want to get into growing their own apple tree and stuff. And the reality behind a lot of that's the purchase there of that item is that will take another year or so before it produces any fruit for you, even if you are getting it at a larger
Yeah.
scale tree. So
Yeah.
it's neat to think about though, because it's um, if you do the math on getting that windbreak, whether you be some of our prior or existing clients are our farms adding more trees on their property, folks with rural properties, or more, we'll call it more urban settings, of just adding some more foliage in their yard. The nice thing about spruce is that some of the roots can be shallow, just similar to the popular, but they do grow quite quickly.
Mhm.
Um, and as long as you take care of them, they're going to be color year round in your yard. That's one
Yeah.
of the bigger feedbacks that we get too. And they do block the wind a little bit nicer than some of the other varieties that do,
Trunk tree.
they'll, yeah, well, they don't have the same body structure
Yeah.
as these would to break wind. Because drifts are a very real thing. I know one of the areas that we
Oh
sell
yeah.
into in the last year was Niverville for both spring and fall for folks. And not really at the stage yet where those trees have probably grown to have a major impact, but they'll have a big advantage versus their other neighbors or other parts of that area that are just adding in right now, or adding the fence. Even it's nice to have those there. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's cool to watch them grow too. My
yeah,
father-in-law, like, a few years ago, he had a little seedling tree in his yard. I think it had, I don't know how it grew because he didn't plant it, but maybe came from one of the other trees in his yard, the little spruce. And he asked us if we wanted it, so he transplanted this little thing. It was like teeny tiny little thing, and
yeah,
he's like, we can't plant it too close to the big, because we have a big monster spruce tree in the backyard. He's like, you can't plant it too close to that. You don't want to crowd it. And I was like, oh, how quick is this thing going to grow, right? And yeah, 2 years, it's like crazy big already. Like it's like nuts. And watching this thing grow, like the stem grew super super tall, and then all the kind of like little bunches kind of caught up with it. But yeah, it was like a
yeah,
little Charlie Brown Christmas tree for a while, but super cool to watch that thing go. And maybe
yeah.
that's just me. I love trees, but
Well, one of the one a property that I used to drive by actually when I was working in ag, it just popped in my head. It was out near Headingley, and as they were building the house, obviously this wasn't their first rodeo, either the
yeah,
builder or the person doing this, and they actually planted 3 rows of each row is a different variety of tree around like far outside where they were building. And so by the time the house was ready to move in, it was a few years later when I've watched them
yeah.
build this and take their time doing it. They already had an established tree line,
Wow.
and that's just a lot easier for even growing grass. It helps with soil health without going too far into that
Yeah,
topic, but it's a lot better for the overall health of your property there. And actually, I mean, on the soil piece too, you'd know more about this from roots can be both, if too close to properties, can affect things if the tree gets too big,
yeah,
negatively, but it can also have a very healthy impact of keeping stability in the soil, which I
right.
see as like a bigger piece in there because it's holding that topsoil and deep in soil down with our soil types in Manitoba.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess in terms of the business side of things, the marketing that's probably worked best for you is the social media, hey, and like word of mouth and referral, repeat referral, and just like
Yeah,
networking with different partnerships.
yeah, and it's kind of like one of those situations we see this as a long term business. So I try not to force anything too much. If the customers aren't there, we just grow the trees bigger.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we charge
Let
more
it.
for them down the road. It's kind
Yeah,
of like a funny business that way. Is that there's not a giant rush. Like if things don't work out, it's just a further investment for us
yeah.
in terms of tree growth, and hopefully we can expand that in the future as we
Just let
are
it
growing that.
let
But
it
it's
let it grow naturally. the business and the
we did.
trees.
There's so many puns within the the topic right there, but it's through social media. So we this is kind of where one of my strengths would be on the marketing side. So we keep consistent. We follow accounts that we're going after. We also stay in touch by email. So we do send out updates to our prior customers and update them on what's going on with us. If we have products that are in inventory as far as firewood and when we're off season, because right now the model for us is quite simple in terms of our pick up or drop off for trees, but it's really segued into 2 parts of the season. So spring and part of May, or second half of May, is when we best guess from off farm they'll be ready. So we communicate that with our email contact list that way, and then in fall we do the same thing for folks to stay in touch. That's usually the second half of September, so a little bit closer, things are just starting to cool down. That's ironically a really great time to plant. A lot of people think it's spring for me, and it is still very good. It's just kind of more dealer's choice on that one. People seem to purchase more in springtime as far as that goes, and utilizing the online store as the website to go to, so they can find information on there. We send out an email list to talk about social media for a minute here too. We use MailChimp. We utilize that tool. Once we get to a different scale, you'll start to pay for MailChimp. So we do that in some other of my companies where we keep up to date with folks. Or you can move to like a bigger program like Hootsuite, where you can manage all of your social media accounts on one platform. And manage the same message going out consistently. We use Canva for a lot of our stuff. In terms of like painting the picture for the customer use case, we crop my image onto farmers fields and different like property things, just to have some humor with it, and then like really again plant the image. We don't need to say see it again, but plant the image with the consumer that this could be a good use for them. The bigger picture is really the math on it, because as you mentioned, the speed of growth there. If you're buying a tree from us, our prices, they go up a little bit, but we will have some sales come and go. So I'd encourage people to get on our email list for that. That's one of the perks of being on there. But if you look at the math on those versus like a 3 or 4 year old tree, where now you have to cut out a root ball, you're looking at, and they're great trees. I talked with some of the other tree farmers around the city, but it's going to cost you a few $100 at that stage. And then for install is usually extra as well. And they got to make their money off that, because there's a lot of effort that goes into cutting the root ball out, the delivery, the weight of this thing, how they're getting it into the yard, the time, everything that consists of that. So
now you need trailers and trucks and everything. Like I know I used to do landscaping in the summer, and we used to have to hand dig a lot of times in these tighter spaces, and of course everybody wants a mature tree, right? And it's like you're hand digging, and you have to dig like 1.5 times the size of the root ball, and then you have to put your topsoil in, and you have to cut the root ball. You got to like hand bomb that tree into the backyard with a dolly. Like it is a crazy job. Like one day easy to plant a tree like that, and by the end of it you're sore and everything else. Just like, I know it takes a while to grow, but just plant them when they're young. Then you can, it's the fun of it. You can watch it grow, and it's just funny. And so many people, they want these massive trees, like, they want them in their yard yesterday. And it's like, you're going to be paying through the nose for something like that. I see these tree nurseries come out with their spades and stuff, and then trying to drive their trucks in the back to spade. Like, oh man, it's thousands of dollars. And
easily, if you're looking for multiple trees and to do that way, I think that's where we're at a nice spot. And given the not to be doom and gloom, but just some of the realities of some things that are more expensive now, and where we're at for our price point, it's still very reasonable for folks to do that. I mean, I know that we're not the most convenient. You can't come to us every day. We're an online store that has different locations set up for pickup in that time of season. But if you're looking for that item that is going to save you a few bucks down the road, I think that we're right in an awesome. People are still probably asking, like, how are you selling them for that? But the reality is we don't have those other expenditures, and we're trying to grow the business and
overhead.
Yeah, and we
Keep it
both have
lean.
other in this case too, both other means of income. So we have
Yeah.
other businesses that we do, and we see this for the long haul. We might not always be that option, but it's kind of one of those things like, what's the triangle for like price, time, money,
Yeah.
or like or price time. I guess money's on that price. Price, time, and quality. So like
Yeah.
good quality, we might not always specific time of year, but our price is lower too, so it's a benefit. Doing
Hmm.
a couple of those tokens for you might not be the right size, I guess would be the thing that's not really on that
Yeah.
perfect equation of triangle there. But yeah, so that would be, it's great for the Manitoba market too. Everyone does
Yeah.
like a deal.
Oh yeah.
Hard to beat on that side of things right now for us, and we're coming into spring, so we'll be taking orders until early, I guess end of April, early May, and
Cool.
then you should be able to order on there until then. And
Sweet.
it's basically it's kind of nice though too, because we have the ability to take stuff right offline
Hmm.
when Mark is sold out for spring season. As we get more customers and this thing flows better, we'll have more than just our two. This summer we may even have a third option for middle of summer for folks to purchase through us, but we have to be cognizant of when those trees are in rapid growth as well. You don't want to pull them
Hmm.
out at different points either. There's a little bit of science behind that, or art as you will.
Yeah.
So we try to do it early spring or in the fall when they're already going dormant. So
Sweet.
yeah.
So what is a goal that you'd like to achieve in 2023? I know we're, at the end of March here, but what's one thing
Yeah,
that you'd like to see?
it's kind of this might seem a little odd. I have hired people before through different companies that offer like virtual help. One
Hmm.
company called Virtual Gurus, or actually at Calgary. I had great experience when I was starting up another company before, just to get some extra. We use this term a lot when we were in the real estate world, but extra leverage out
Hmm.
of folks, just to help you along your journey. And that was nice because it helped fill in some holes where I wasn't as strong at that time. And the goal this year is to bring on a couple people on a more regular basis. So we're talking more employees that are full time, to add a few folks in that regard to help support the growth of companies, because
Hmm.
the bandwidth is only so big.
Yeah.
So we started conversations that way, and I'm kind of at the stage now where I'd like to scale these things bigger and find out what's really going to work and stick.
Yeah.
So it's
I find
kind of it's not a specific goal in terms of
no, but
turning into
that's
trees or anything, but
it's
yeah,
it's those like incremental little things that you can implement in your business that could help to like, blow it out of the water, you know? And it's those are the things like hiring people, putting the right people in the right seats on the bus, so to speak, that can help move the needle just a little bit more, take care of some of the DPAs, the dollar productive activities, so
yep,
that you can focus on that. And, because ultimately, like, you're the face of it, you know, and like you're the tree daddy. So you gotta
yeah,
you gotta like, keep planting your seed everywhere. And then because right now I'm assuming that you're doing social media, and you're doing orders, and you're doing like everything online. Is that correct?
that is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah,
So
that's the
yeah.
main way to go. There's just, if we
Yeah.
can go direct to customers too through social media, like our use of that versus even if it's a temporary like weekend rental, like we'd have to increase our prices a lot,
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
be able to like facilitate that. So it's kind of funny to, yeah, to know all the economics behind the small business is what we'll call it,
Hmm.
and how much risk people are taking when they're doing those shows, which can be very beneficial.
Yeah.
But because we're only a couple seasons of the year there, so yeah,
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So I know, like, even for me, I always had like a really, 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 really hard time with delegation. And like, um, oftentimes I would spread myself way too thin, and feeling like you're getting pulled from every different angle all at the same time. But then hiring, like an amazing assistant, and just to do those things that, number one, I don't like doing. I've always hated doing stuff like paperwork and stuff like that. And then
yep,
recently, with the addition of a you know virtual assistant, it's really helped to take care of a lot of the social media pieces and that side of things. And I feel like I have more time to do the things that I love doing, like this, and like, actually, just focusing on like dialing in on showing houses and meeting customers and putting deals together and, stuff like that. And, eventually you'll probably notice that too when you hire the right virtual assistant or the right person, and you start to delegate some of those little tasks. You'll notice so much more time freedom for you to go out and, do the really important dollar productive stuff. And networking as an entrepreneur, it's so important. But if you don't have time to do that because you're focusing on the little remedial tasks, like that's where I feel like people really stay in their slump, And for some people,
Totally.
they really like, it's like, I'm fine building 5 houses a year, or I'm fine, selling 10 homes a year, or I'm fine, having an email list of, 20 people that we provide trees to. But for other people, they want to grow it, and networking. And I love meeting new people and talking to new people and networking. And that's what life is all about. Right.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's really cool to see that you're taking those steps and that's, one of your goals.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's, yeah.
So yeah, we'll cap this off, I think. Are there any like books or podcasts? I know not everybody reads. Some people listen to audiobooks or whatever. But like I haven't read a book. I'll be honest, like I haven't read a book in too long. But I consume a lot of stuff like podcasts or, YouTube stuff. Even when I'm in my car, I consume a lot of different things. Some of it's business related, some of it's not. And, is there anything that you're kind of actively reading, or any books you recommend or podcasts that you listen to on a daily basis?
For sure. And I'm going to have to come extremely clean on the whole reading thing because my family might listen and they'll call me out on this. But the reality is I do read once in a while, like if I'm really focused, but I can put my head into that. And if not, I'm actually like literally looking at a book on my desk here that I recently bought about project management. I was just curious. I found it in an airport. It's like a Harvard business thing. And ultimately there's some things that I have learned through my great experiences in like corporate America, ag, where they put you through training and it's very in depth. It's really hard to replicate that in any other like company that I've experienced to date. And so along with that, the odd book I will dive into, nothing really specific, but if it's something I want to know, I'll go in there and literally use a highlighter, like do the cringeworthy thing where I'm like, okay, that was important. I want to come back to that just because I don't see value in like the entirety of the book. It's good to relay back to. I just actually pulled up my Spotify though to reference the real stuff that I spend time listening to. And as you mentioned too, it's a time thing. These audio assets are out there and they do a really good job of sharing it along with video too in many cases. But like I do the one that just got sent my way, and I don't know enough about this podcast, so if there's something whatever, I don't know. But this one's called PBD Podcast. I don't even know what it stands for.
Oh yeah, Patrick David.
Oh yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. This guy. Yeah. So that one just got recommended to me from a friend. I listened to an episode this morning. I thought it was really good. There's another one on here that I listened to a lot over winter. Like I think I'm cut up on episodes there. It was called Smart List. That one's a little bit more comedic in nature. It started during the pandemic. I'm not going to remember all the actors' names that are on there, but that one's a good one, both entertainment and to know the reality of behind the scenes on like the acting world, the way they talk about it. Startup Stories Mixergy is a good one as well. That'd be like my top 3. That one's interesting because they talk with founders of companies that have scaled, failed, and everything between on their journey. And lots of great tips in there, from their experiences. And it's certainly a different level from where, we're chatting about in this particular company is at right now. But it's good to reference those things. You learn a lot from hearing different folks talk about their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I find like there's so much value in the long form conversation nowadays. You get to really like know, like, and trust someone and have a lot of respect for their come up in the long form. And it's really cool. I listen to like a lot of different things, but for me, like, you could listen to an entire podcast with like a business person, or in my case, like a successful realtor or something like that. And the whole time you could be like, yeah, I know all this already. I know all this already. I know all this already. But all it takes is one little nugget. They could say one thing that they do in their playbook, that they implement in their business, that could just, like, the light bulb could go off and you're like, wow. Like, I just listened to an hour and a half long podcast, and there was one like 2-minute nugget in there that just like blew the lid off. So that's why they're so important. That's why, like, even going to conventions and stuff like that is so important. Like, a lot of people, they don't want to invest. They don't want to invest into themselves to like go to these conventions and listen to speakers, but because they think that, I know everything already. What is this guy going to teach me? Right. But it's like, you get one nugget, one take home, and it could just revolutionize the way that you run your business or whatever. So that's cool that you're.
Yeah. I was going to say one more thing on that note, because I think this is important too. Yeah. Why people are running the businesses that they do. Because some people own multiple businesses, but the reason they hold on to one of them is for a very different reason than you think. It's actually just an extension, or it actually generates leads for, a sister company or something within there. Yeah. It's not a lot to do with, that. And you hear that mindset, it's like, oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. It might save you money in a different part of your.
So why do you do what you do? Why, obviously, money and income and all that kind of stuff, you have to make a living, but is there a why for you? There's that book, like, Start With Why, I think it's called.
Yeah. There's a couple. There's definitely been, I think, you go through this. I think many of us go through this as going on your own as an entrepreneur, about like what your bigger why is, because everyone thinks it's for, money or the freedom, and a lot of that is tied to income and time in that paradox. But like in this case with this company, it's to be there for the long play. This trees are not really going to go out of style, in my opinion. It's one of those things I'd like to be around for. And I think from some other experiences in tech, we're going to pull some tech into this company in the future. That's why it's less about being so focused on making short money. In that sense, if people can make sense of that, like I said, when some people are, thinking that they can negotiate with these crazy margins and stuff, it's not really like that. And ultimately, we're probably not the right company for them if they want to try to get a really inexpensive tree for less than where we were at originally. But so there's some bigger, longer stuff.
Longer play,
but longer play stuff, especially with the other brands that I've created and running with those companies. It's building those relationships, make a little money on the way, but then have a bigger play to have an impact on, without being too soft on that. But it truly is like, how can we generate more of a following and do good with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the day and age that we live in now, I feel like there's so much more emphasis on the personal brand than these large companies. People want to support people that they know, like, and trust, and that have a personal brand. I find that with real estate as well. Like, it used to be all about, if you're a top producing realtor, people are going to hire you because of, the brand that you're associated with. Remax, Century 21, Royal LePage, whatever. It's like, I'm only going to work with a Remax agent. I'm only going to work with this person. Nowadays, I can't even remember the last time in like 10 years that someone has asked me, which company are you with? Like, people don't, it's not a question, like, they call you because of you, because, what you sit, how you talk and how you work and how you're going to treat those people, So if that's the way that the world is going, then there should be more of an emphasis on the personal brand and things like social media and, YouTube and online. It's like, that's what's going to help to accelerate that personal brand and get people to know, like, and trust you. So I think that's like really cool that you're, kind of utilizing all of those components, but in a tree business. So,
yes.
Yeah. And, you know, trees are dope, man. Like, you know, like people need, like, I know like city of Winnipeg and stuff like that. They do plant a lot of trees. Like they had that tree initiative and all that kind of stuff. And, but like you can never have too many trees as far as I'm concerned. So you're doing a net positive for the world, Stephen. Like
Yeah.
you're creating a greener place to live. So
yes, we are kind of by way of business, and hopefully it's, a benefit for people. I think everyone has that experience where they go back and, we were even reminiscing quite literally just this past weekend. My parents got some old childhood videos put on a USB they hadn't watched in ever, because no one has VHS machines anymore or whatever they were even on. And it was kind of interesting just to like see that, and you reference like the yard and how the size of the trees that are there or have been taken down because they outgrew it. And I think everyone has like a memory where they remember when the tree was as high as the fence kind of moment. Or if they're in an open space, they remember when there was no trees, and then they got a bunch now. So
yeah, that's awesome. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for jumping on the pod, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, because you're always like, I love your energy, and like I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs, young guys who are taking initiative to get shit done in the world and in their businesses, and and kind of make a conscious effort to go on their own and do their own thing and march to the beat of their own drum. And I know you have a lot of fingers in different pies and cookie jars, so to speak, but I feel like this Tree Daddii thing is such a sick business, and I wish you nothing but success, and hopefully we can continue to support you and get you some tree sales here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you having us on here today, and always enjoy when we catch up as well. I'd say the feeling's mutual on the energy front. So
awesome. Okay, man. I hope you have a great day, and thanks everybody for watching, listening, however you're consuming it. And please feel free to share, like, subscribe, send to your friends, family. If you guys want trees, Tree Daddii, I'll post the link to the socials and the website in the description. And hope everybody has a great week. Peace out.